Aliens thought they knew war, then they met a human battleship. The Zerkai Dominion had war down to an art. For centuries, their fleets had burned planets to ash, their armies had crushed opposition under clawed feet, and their war engines had rewritten the balance of power across the galactic rim. When the Dominion invaded a star system, resistance crumbled. Their ships were massive, armored leviathans bristling with plasma lances and annihilation cannons. No empire, no coalition, no species had ever withstood them for long. And then they met the humans. At first, the Dominion barely acknowledged them, a minor species on the fringes of known space. A backwater civilization, recently spacefaring but primitive. Their ships were ugly, blocky things of steel and stubbornness, their technology crude compared to the organic warships of the Dominion. The humans had no psionic warfare, no genetic supersoldiers, no reality-breaking weaponry. So when Dominion warlords ordered the invasion of the Sol frontier, the outcome was never in doubt. The invasion fleet numbered over 300 Zerkai warships. They exited FTL in tight formation, their black chitin hulls absorbing the distant light of Sol. The lead ship, Primordial Wrath, was a 10-kilometer-long dreadnought, its plasma batteries capable of cracking a planet's crust. The Dominion's strategy was simple: overrun the humans before they could mount resistance. Then they saw it. A single human battleship. It was nothing like Dominion vessels. No sleek curves, no bio-grown armor. This thing was brutal. A flying fortress of reinforced titanium alloys, covered in railgun turrets, missile silos and energy shields flickering like caged storms. Etched on its side, in bold human script, was a name that would soon be whispered across the galaxy. HSF Retribution. The Dominion's fleet admiral, High Lord Kavor, watched the human warship drift between Saturn's rings. He clicked his mandibles in amusement. One ship. That is their answer? He sneered. Pathetic. The humans, he thought, still did not understand their place in the galaxy. Advance. The Dominion fleet surged forward, weapons primed. Plasma cannons locked onto the Retribution. They expected an easy kill. They were wrong. The first human salvo hit before the Dominion even realized the battle had begun. Railguns thundered, accelerating hyperdense tungsten slugs at near-light speeds. The kinetic rounds slammed into the leading Dominion ships, punching through shields, armor and hulls like paper. Zerkai warships that had survived 100 battles exploded in seconds, their cores rupturing under the sheer force. Kavor's mandibles snapped open in shock. Their weapons, how? The Retribution did not let up. Autocannons roared, spitting out millions of rounds per minute. Swarm missiles ignited, weaving through enemy formations before detonating in white-hot fury. Laser lances carved through hulls with surgical precision. The Dominion fleet had superior numbers. But the Retribution fought like a cornered beast, brutal, relentless, and terrifyingly efficient. Then the broadside came. The battleship rolled mid-flight, exposing its entire starboard array. Every single gun fired at once. The void turned into a storm of firepower. Dominion vessels shattered. Their shields buckled, their hulls fractured, and their crews were incinerated in a hellstorm of human fury. Entire wings of warships ceased to exist in the span of seconds. Panic spread through the Dominion ranks. Fall back. Fall back. Kavor's command ship twisted violently as an electromagnetic pulse cannon fired from the Retribution, disabling shields across a dozen Zerkai ships. More railgun slugs followed, ripping them apart before they could escape. Kavor felt something he had never known before. Fear. The battle had turned in less than 4 minutes. What the Dominion had expected to be a slaughter had become a massacre, but they were the prey. And then, the human ship did something horrifying. It sent out a signal. Not a surrender. Not a demand for peace. A message. It was a single transmission, broadcasted in perfect Zerkai language. Is that all you've got? Kavor's blood ran cold. This was not war as the Dominion knew it. This was something far worse. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were enjoying it. Kavor's mandibles quivered as the human transmission echoed through the bridge of his flagship, Primordial Wrath. The voice was smooth, calm, almost mocking. Is that all you've got? It was impossible. The Dominion had never faced this before. They were the apex predators of the galaxy. For thousands of years, their fleets had brought entire civilizations to their knees. And yet, here now, against a single human battleship, they were losing. Kavor's clawed fingers tightened on the control pedestal. How? He snarled. How is this possible? One ship cannot. The Retribution fired again. Another volley of railgun slugs slammed into the retreating Dominion warships. A dreadnought nearly as large as Kavor's own, took 3 rounds through its central spine. The impact cracked the ship in half. Explosions cascaded through its body like ruptured organs before it detonated completely, sending shockwaves through the void. The screams of thousands of warriors flooded Kavor's comms. This was not war. This was slaughter. His second-in-command, war leader Holeth, hissed, "High Lord, we must retreat." Kavor's pride burned at the suggestion. Retreat? From a single enemy ship? But he looked at the battle. Over 60 Dominion warships, destroyed. Another dozen critically damaged. The Retribution, by contrast, was untouched. Humanity was toying with them. His claws trembled. He had no choice. Pull the fleet back to Formation Theta. Prepare the Annihilator cannon. The superweapon. The Dominion fleet broke away, retreating in controlled chaos as they moved to a tighter formation. At its core, primordial wrath began powering up its most fearsome weapon. The Annihilator cannon. It was the Dominion's trump card, a weapon capable of destabilizing matter at the quantum level. Planets had died to it. Shields were meaningless before it. No vessel, no species had ever survived a direct hit. A deep hum reverberated through the dreadnought's structure as the cannon's maw glowed a sickly green. Energy built, growing into a storm of destruction. Kavor exhaled slowly. "It is over," he whispered. "Nothing withstands the Annihilator." He turned to the tactical officer. "Lock onto the human ship. Fire at my command." The Retribution was still advancing, fearless, as if daring them to try. "Target locked," the officer confirmed. Kavor bared his fangs. "Fire." The Annihilator cannon unleashed hell. A searing, emerald beam erupted from the dreadnought, tearing through the void at impossible speed. Everything in its path, asteroids, debris, even light itself, was consumed, erased from existence. It struck the Retribution dead center. For a moment, Kavor felt relief. Nothing could survive that. Then his world collapsed. The impossible shield. The beam should have obliterated the human battleship. But it didn't. Instead, it splashed against an unseen barrier, a shimmering energy field that bent reality itself. The Dominion fleet watched in horror as the Retribution absorbed the Annihilator blast like it was nothing. Kavor's mind fractured. "No," he whispered. "That shield. It wasn't like Dominion barriers. It wasn't like anything they had ever encountered. It didn't just block energy. It devoured it. And then, the impossible happened. The energy from the Annihilator cannon, rather than dissipating, began to redirect. Twisting. Reversing. And then, the human ship fired it back. A mirror image of the Annihilator blast roared from the Retribution's hull, but now stronger, faster, deadlier. It slammed into primordial wrath. The Dominion dreadnought's shields shattered instantly. The hull buckled, cracked, and then imploded. Kavor screamed as the ship was torn apart around him. He barely had time to process it before his body was consumed in a white-hot inferno. The Dominion's mightiest vessel, destroyed in a single shot. The aftermath. The remaining Dominion warships hesitated. Their most powerful dreadnought was gone. Their flagship was reduced to nothing. And the Retribution? Untouched. A human voice came over the comms again. "That was your best weapon? Pathetic." Fear gripped every surviving Dominion captain. This wasn't a battle anymore. It was an execution. One by one, the remaining warships activated FTL drives, fleeing in blind terror. The SCI-FI Dominion had never run from a fight before. Until today. Because today, they learned fear. And across the galaxy, a warning would spread. Humanity was not to be challenged. Not now. Not ever. The SCI-FI fleet fled. Scattered remnants of a once invincible armada, warships that had raised entire star systems now running like prey. Their FTL drives burned hot as they hurled themselves away from Saturn's orbit, away from the human battleship, away from the nightmare they had never imagined possible. But they could not escape the truth. The SCI-FI Dominion had been defeated, not by a fleet, not by an empire, but by a single human warship. And the galaxy took notice. The Dominion reels. The survivors arrived at Vorkesh, the Dominion's core military stronghold. Wounded ships docked like dying animals, their hulls scarred by tungsten slugs and energy burns. The High Warlords convened in the War Council chamber, a vast chamber of obsidian and fire pits, its walls carved with the victories of the Dominion. But today there were no victories. Only fear. The few survivors of the battle stood before the High Warlords, trembling. One of the war leaders, Holeth, one of the only commanders who had survived the Retribution's fury, stepped forward. His carapace was cracked, his left arm missing, but his voice was steady. "My lords," he rasped, "the humans, they are not what we believe them to be." The high warlords clicked in irritation. "We are the Dominion," one of them hissed. "We have conquered thousands of worlds. What can a single species do against us?" Holeth raised his remaining claw. "You do not understand. This is not war as we know it. The humans—" He hesitated, as if even speaking it would damn them further. "They enjoyed it." The chamber fell silent. One of the warlords, an ancient strategist named Varlos, leaned forward. "Explain." Holeth exhaled. "We have fought species that resist. We have fought species that fight to survive. But the humans, they fought because they wanted to. They took no damage, suffered no losses, and they were amused." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. "And their technology?" Varlos pressed. "We analyzed their ships before. Inferior. Yet you claim they bested us?" Holeth's mandibles tightened. "We fired the Annihilator cannon at them." The murmurs ceased. "And? They absorbed it." The warlords froze. "They returned the energy," Holeth continued, his voice trembling, "stronger than before. And destroyed our flagship in a single shot." The silence was suffocating. Then a new voice spoke, deep, slow, deliberate. "They mirror power?" The warlords turned to the overlord of the Dominion, Exequil the Eternal. He was older than any of them, his exoskeleton darkened with age, his eyes black as the abyss. Holeth bowed his head. "Yes, overlord." Exequil's mandibles twitched. "Then we cannot fight them." It was a declaration of doom. The War Council erupted in rage. "We are the Dominion. We have never surrendered. They are one species. We have legions." Exequil stood, his towering frame casting a shadow across the room. When he spoke again, it was with the weight of centuries. "Then tell me, warlords," he said, his voice a venomous whisper, "if we have legions, why did they not return?" No one answered. Because they all knew the truth. It didn't matter how many fleets they had. It didn't matter how many soldiers they sent. The humans would slaughter them all. The Council of Species. The galaxy was watching. The battle at Saturn had sent shockwaves through the cosmos. Every major civilization, the Olani Imperium, the Varric Enclave, the Coalition of Free Worlds, scrambled for information. For the first time in history, the mighty Zerkai Dominion had been defeated. At Prime Nexus, the neutral meeting ground of the great species, the Galactic Council gathered. Never before had every major power assembled in a single place. Representatives of 100 empires sat in the Great Chamber, some insectoid, others reptilian, mammalian, amorphous. But all had the same question. What in the void had humanity done? The chamber buzzed with tension. Finally, the Speaker of the Council, a towering owl-like being known as Vel, called the meeting to order. "We are gathered to discuss the events at Saturn," Veldar announced. The Zerkai Dominion, long thought to be invincible, was routed by a single human warship. "This changes everything." Murmurs spread. Some scoffed. Others whispered. One of the delegates, a serpentine being from the Olani Imperium, leaned forward. "We knew humans were dangerous. But this is beyond reason." A representative from the Varric Enclave, a crustacean-like being with many eyes, chittered nervously. "If one human battleship can do this, what of their fleets?" That question hung in the air like a guillotine. The humans had kept their true strength hidden. If one ship had destroyed a Dominion fleet, then what were the rest capable of? Then the human envoy arrived. A single figure, clad in a crisp military uniform, stepped into the chamber. Unlike the towering aliens around him, he was small, unassuming. Yet the entire room fell silent. He walked to the center of the council, hands clasped behind his back, and smiled. "Good evening," he said casually. "I assume you have questions." Veldar's golden eyes gleamed. "Human, explain. Your species has fought wars before, but nothing like this. What are you hiding?" The human shrugged. "We're not hiding anything," he said. "We just never had a reason to show you." Tension thickened. Veldar leaned forward. "And what happens now?" The human's smile widened. "That depends." "On what?" He exhaled slowly. "On whether the rest of you are stupid enough to try." The chamber exploded in whispers. The message was clear. The Dominion had tried. And the Dominion had burned. Would anyone else make the same mistake? The galaxy trembled. And humanity smiled. The Galactic Council chamber fell into silence. The human envoy, Captain Elias Grant, stood in the center, hands still clasped behind his back, waiting. His words lingered in the air, their weight crushing the gathered delegates. That depends on whether the rest of you are stupid enough to try. The implications were clear. The Dominion had challenged humanity, and humanity had answered. Veldar, the Speaker of the Council, exhaled slowly. Captain Grant, the owl-like alien said, his golden eyes unreadable, are you saying that humanity welcomes war? Elias' smile didn't falter. No. We hate war. We avoid it when we can. His gaze swept across the room. But when someone insists on bringing it to us, we don't just win. He took a step forward. We end it. A ripple of unease spread through the council. The Zerkai Dominion had learned this firsthand. Now, every species in the chamber had to ask themselves the same question. Would they be next? The Dominion's last stand. While the council deliberated, the Zerkai Dominion was unraveling. News of the fleet's defeat at Saturn spread like wildfire. Entire vassal species revolted overnight. Rebellions erupted on occupied worlds. Dominion governors were slaughtered in their own halls. The overlord Exequil watched from his throne on Vorkesh as the unthinkable happened, his empire crumbling in real time. His generals, the finest tacticians of the Dominion, stood before him in disgrace. Overlord, one of them croaked, we must make peace. Exequil's claws dug into the stone of his throne. Peace, he spat. With them? They have left us no choice. Exequil's mandibles twitched. He had ruled for centuries, had seen entire species kneel before the Dominion. And now he was being told to kneel. Never. Summon every fleet, he commanded. Every last ship, every last warrior. His black eyes burned with hatred. If we are to fall, we will take as many of them with us as we can. The final war had begun. Humanity unleashed. The Dominion launched everything they had. 12,000 warships. 1 billion soldiers. Every dreadnought, every superweapon, every last scrap of power they could muster was thrown at humanity in a desperate bid to erase them from the stars. But the humans had seen this coming. And they had been waiting. When the Dominion fleet arrived in Sol, they expected a battle. They expected resistance. Instead they found hell itself. The moment the first Dominion warship breached the outer system, it disappeared. Not destroyed. Not shot down. Just gone. Confused, they sent scouts. The scouts never returned. Then came the first message. Welcome to Sol. You shouldn't have come. The Dominion fleet hesitated. Then their sensors failed. Their systems glitched. Gravity itself shifted as space began to fold around them. And that was when they realized they were already dead. Humanity had never stopped advancing. While the rest of the galaxy thought of them as a young race, they had been building, perfecting, preparing. And now they unleashed weapons the galaxy had never even dreamed of. Ships that folded space around them, making them untouchable. Weapons that converted enemy fire into raw energy, feeding their own counterattacks. AI-driven warships, faster, deadlier, unhindered by organic limitations. Gravity lances that could collapse enemy vessels from the inside out. The Dominion had come for war. They had found annihilation. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted 14 minutes. At the end of it, the Dominion fleet was gone. Every last warship erased. Every last soldier silenced. Humanity had spoken. And the Dominion was no more. The New Order. The fall of the Zerkai Dominion sent shockwaves through the galaxy. In one day, the greatest empire in known history ceased to exist. No one dared challenge humanity after that. The council reconvened, but this time, it was different. Veldar, once the speaker, now looked to Captain Elias Grant with something new in his ancient eyes. Respect. Humanity, Veldar said carefully, what do you intend to do now? Elias was silent for a moment. Then he smiled. We're not conquerors, he said. We don't want to rule. We don't want to enslave. He let his words hang in the air before delivering the final blow. But make no mistake. If anyone else tries what the Dominion did, we will erase you. No one argued. Because they all understood the truth. The galaxy belonged to humanity now. Not because they demanded it. Not because they wanted it. But because no one could stop them. And as the meeting adjourned, as Elias Grant walked away, the rest of the galaxy shared a single thought. They had learned war from the Dominion. But the humans had perfected it. The end.